Eli Morgan didn't like his job, but he liked silence, and the maintenance work on Orbital Station Halcyon gave him plenty of that until the day the silence spoke back to him. That morning had started like any other. He drank weak coffee, scanned his schedule, and was assigned to Sector C-12, part of the station's museum wing, where Earth's relics were preserved behind glass and sealed metal. Eli had been in that section a few times before. It was cold, dark, and quiet, filled with ancient things no one cared about any more: stone carvings, dusty books, and, most oddly, a large piece of an old stone wall that had been carried from Earth over 500 years ago. The plaque called it the Remnant, a symbol of the world humanity had left behind. No one really looked at it, but today Eli was told to scan its structure after minor tremors had been detected. He stepped through the thick doors, humming to himself, light blinking on his scanner, and walked up to the wall that looked like nothing more than aged rock covered in faded carvings. As he leaned closer, trying to examine a hairline crack running along the surface, his boot caught a small pipe, and he stumbled forward. His head struck the wall hard, and pain exploded across his skull as everything went black. The world vanished. For a moment, just silence and darkness. Then, as if from a great distance, he heard it. A voice, soft and broken, whispering through the fog of his mind, "You saved me." His eyes snapped open, and he gasped, lying flat on the floor with his scanner flashing red beside him. There was no one in the room, just him, the wall, and the empty quiet. He sat up slowly, rubbing his head, confused and a little scared. He waited, hoping he imagined it. Nothing, no whisper. Maybe it was just his mind playing tricks. But then, just as he turned to leave, he heard it again, barely a breath. "Don't leave." His heart froze. He stared at the wall, suddenly seeing it not just as stone, but something else, something watching. Eli backed away and reported his injury to the medical bay, but didn't mention the voice. They scanned him, said he had a mild concussion, and gave him rest orders. But that night he couldn't sleep. The voice stayed in his mind, not speaking, just waiting. The next day he returned to the wall, despite the rules. The museum wing was closed for maintenance, but he knew how to override the locks. He stood before it again and whispered, "Was that you?" Nothing, just the low hum of the station's systems. But as he touched the wall, warmth spread through his palm, like the stone was alive. The voice came again, clearer now. "You heard me." Eli stumbled back, heart pounding. "Who are you?" he asked. A pause. Then, slowly, "I don't remember, but you found me. You saved me." The voice was female, gentle and sad. Something about it felt human, not artificial. Not a glitch or system error. Eli ran a deep scan using his private tools, ones that bypassed the normal station logs. The readings made no sense. There were trace energy signals inside the wall, something old, buried deep, something not powered but alive in a way he couldn't explain. The wall wasn't just a relic. It was holding something or someone. The next few days, Eli returned again and again, speaking with the voice in secret. She called herself Leora. She didn't remember much, only feelings, fragments, memories of a place with wind and rain, a lab, a promise she had made. She said she had waited a long time for someone to hear her. Eli felt drawn to her, not out of fear, but something else, curiosity, compassion, a strange connection. He told her stories about the station, about how people had left Earth behind, and how no one cared about the past anymore. She listened, she remembered, and slowly she spoke more. She asked questions about him, about the world, about how long it had been. Eli didn't tell anyone about her. He was afraid they'd think he was crazy, or worse, try to remove the wall. And deep inside, he didn't want to lose her. It was like finding a star in the dark. But things were changing. One day, his supervisor noticed his long absences and filed a report. Security began checking museum logs. Eli knew his time was limited. He needed answers. Who was Leora, really? What was inside that wall? He searched old records and hidden files about the Earth remnant, digging through archives most people had forgotten. And there he found it, an old name, Dr. Leora Vance, a scientist from Earth's final days, known for her work in theoretical consciousness preservation. She had vanished just before the last exodus, and her lab, it had been in the same city as the wall. Eli stared at the document, chills running down his spine. Could it be true? Had her mind survived, somehow encoded into the wall? And if so, why him? Why now? He returned to the museum, hands shaking, and whispered her name. Leora Vance. The wall pulsed beneath his hand, just once, like a heartbeat. Then the voice returned, stronger than ever. You remember me. Eli took a deep breath. I think I'm starting to. And as the soft light in the room flickered above him, the wall seemed to glow faintly, as if waiting, as if awakening. Eli. Morgan didn't know how to explain what he was feeling: fear, wonder, confusion, and something close to hope, all wrapped together as he stood once again before the ancient wall, deep inside Orbital Station Halcyon's museum wing, now sealed off after his previous unauthorized visits. But that didn't stop him. He had learned the station's old systems during his years in maintenance, and with a few hidden commands and a stolen access code, he slipped inside during the late hours when most people were asleep. The lights in the museum were dim and the silence heavy, but the moment he approached the wall, he felt warmth touch his skin again, soft and familiar. Eli, the voice said gently, and it no longer frightened him. It was Leora, clearer than before, her tone almost human, now layered with emotion. He crouched near the base of the wall, hand pressed against its cold surface, and whispered, Who are you really? There was a pause, then she answered, I was a scientist. I was trying to save something, maybe myself. Eli told her about the record he found her name in the old Earth archives, and she grew quiet, like remembering something long buried. Yes, she said finally, I worked on a project. They called it the Living Code. I thought it could preserve a person's mind, their thoughts, their voice, a digital soul. But they were afraid. They shut it down before we could finish. Eli listened closely, heart beating fast. You mean you put yourself in the code? She hesitated, then said, I tried. I had no choice. The storms were coming. Cities were falling. We had days before the last ships left. I couldn't leave my work, not without proving it worked. Eli stared at the wall in disbelief. Realizing what she meant, her mind had been saved inside this stone, hidden away for centuries, waiting for someone with the right signal to hear her. Why me? He asked, and Leora's voice turned softer, like wind passing through leaves. Because you listened. You felt something. Others walked past, but you stopped. That matters. Still, questions burned inside him. He wanted to know how her consciousness remained after so long, how a stone wall could hold a mind, how any of this was possible. So he scanned the wall, again with a portable device he smuggled from engineering, and the results shocked him. The wall held faint quantum signals, complex, repeating, stable but not natural. Something was stored inside, something alive in the smallest units of energy, something too advanced for even Halcyon's current systems to fully read. He copied the readings, encrypted them, and shared them secretly with Ava, his oldest friend, someone he trusted. Ava worked in systems analysis, and while she thought the idea of a talking wall was insane, the data made her pause. "This pattern," she said, pointing at the screen, "it looks like a neural map, like a brain's memory network. But it's not like anything in our databases. Where did you get this?" Eli lied at first, saying it was from a test relay on an old drone, but Ava didn't buy it. "This is human," she whispered. "I don't know how, but this was someone once." That night, as Eli returned to the wall, he found the lights in the museum flickering more than usual. When he pressed his hand to the stone, Leora's voice came with urgency. "They're coming," she warned. "I can feel them scanning, watching." He realized the station's automated systems had detected something strange energy from the wall that wasn't supposed to exist. The station might report it, maybe even remove it, and Leora would be lost again. "We don't have much time," she said, and then added something stranger. "The key is in you." Eli didn't understand. "What key?" he asked, but she just said, "You're the reason I woke up. It's not just your voice. It's your blood." He thought back to the record doctor. Leora Vance had disappeared during Earth's last days, but there had been no mention of family. Then a strange thought crossed his mind. Could he be related to her? Could she be his ancestor? The idea felt wild and possible, but something in him, deep and quiet, said yes. Over the next 2 days, he avoided security checks, stopped logging into the network, and returned only when it was safe. Ava eventually forced the truth out of him, and though she was scared, she believed him. If Leora is really alive in there," she said, "we need to move fast. They'll shut it down the second they figure it out." So the two of them made a plan. They would extract whatever data they could from the wall using a deep layer reader, a device banned for use outside research zones. Ava had one hidden from an old project, and they connected it directly to the stone. Leora screamed, not in pain, but in fear, her voice shaking the walls of Eli's mind. "It's too early," she cried. "You're not ready." Then the scanner shut down, overheated, as if the wall had defended itself. Eli collapsed, dizzy, with strange images flashing behind his eyes. A lab filled with light, thunder shaking old glass windows, a woman crying over a hard drive, whispering to a child. When he woke up, he saw Ava kneeling beside him, scared, but amazed. I think she showed you something," she said. "What did you see?" Eli touched the wall again and said quietly, "Home, her home, and maybe mine too." The wall pulsed again, and Leora whispered his name not with fear, but with trust. Eli knew then that the past wasn't dead, not completely. It was still here, echoing through old stone, waiting to be remembered. And somehow he had become part of it. Eli Morgan woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing, his head filled with images that did not belong to him, flashes of a glowing lab, metal walls covered in wires, a woman crying softly while holding a baby. Close to her chest as thunder roared outside an ancient window, and her whisper, "This will keep you safe." He sat on the edge of his bed, breathing hard, confused, and shaken, because the woman's face was the same as the voice in the wall, Leora, and the child felt strangely familiar, like someone he had once been. Over the last few days, things had changed quickly. Since connecting the deep layer reader to the old stone wall and hearing Leora's cry, Eli had been seeing more of these visions every night, like memories trapped in someone else's skin, but living now in his. Ava monitored his condition closely, worried he was breaking down, but Eli believed something else. Leora was showing him her past, and maybe even his own. He began tracing his family history, digging through forgotten files, old genetic logs, and immigration records from the Earth departure year, and the truth came slowly into focus. A hidden branch of the Vance family tree. Unlisted descendants placed in lower-tier vessels during the final evacuation. Identities changed to protect them. One of those names was his great-grandmother. Eli's hands shook as he stared at the file. He was blood to Leora Vance. Somehow, her DNA had been passed down, hidden and forgotten, until now. That was why she had spoken to him. That was why the wall had awakened. The access key she spoke of wasn't a tool or a password, it was in him. His genetic code held the link to her consciousness, the final piece of her life preserved inside. Ancient matter and memory, but time was running out. The museum wing had been officially closed off for structural review, but Eli knew what that meant. The station council suspected something strange, and they were getting ready to remove or destroy the artifact. Ava warned him that the wall might be gone within days. Desperate, Eli convinced her to help him one last time. They prepared a private medical scanner, one capable of running a deep gene match and neural interface sequence, something risky and far beyond allowed protocols. That night they returned to the wall, Elle more nervous than he had ever been, and placed a device against his arm in the stone at the same time. At first, nothing happened. Then a sharp pulse ran through his chest, and the room seemed to bend. The air changed, like space was folding inward, and suddenly he wasn't in the museum anymore. He stood inside a bright room, quiet and humming, filled with blue light and transparent walls. A woman stood near a console, her back to him, and when she turned he saw her face, Leora's face, but younger, alive, smiling. "You found me," she said, and her voice was no longer distant or broken. It was full and clear, like she was really there. Eli couldn't speak, tears forming in his eyes, but she stepped closer, touching his face gently. "You carry my legacy," she said, "and my last hope." She explained everything. During Earth's collapse, her work on digital consciousness had been rejected by the leadership. She had encoded her mind into a complex quantum structure, hiding it inside the material of the stone wall, hoping that someone from her family line might one day carry the correct match to unlock her again. She had buried messages, memories, instructions inside the wall, but only a genetic echo could bring her back. Eli was that echo. I've waited for you, she said, through dust and silence. But the vision began to tremble, the walls fading, her voice becoming distant again. The station is tracking this power, she warned. They'll find me and shut me down. You have to move me soon. Eli asked how. She told him to use the station's old relay servers buried beneath the tower, the only place with enough unmonitored space to transfer her code safely. But you must hurry, she said. When they come, I won't be able to protect myself. Then the vision snapped, and Eli collapsed in Ava's arms, the room spinning. He told her everything. What? He saw what she said, and Ava, still stunned, agreed to help. They gathered what tools they needed, prepared a small server hidden in the lower decks, and planned the data extraction. But as they worked, they didn't notice the silent alarms that had already begun. Security logs flagged irregular energy. Spikes, system anomalies in the museum, unauthorized access points. Someone else was now watching. Eli didn't care. He returned to the wall for what might be the last time, placing both hands against the stone, whispering, I'm ready. And from within, Leora answered, her voice full of peace and purpose. Then let us begin. The night was quiet, but Eli Morgan's heart beat fast as he followed Ava through the hidden corridors beneath Orbital Station Halcyon, carrying the portable server in his arms like it was something alive, something sacred, because in a way it was Leora's last chance. Above them, security patrols searched the museum wing, unaware that Eli had already made his final visit to the old stone wall where her voice had lived for so long. Time was short now. Ava had rerouted the station's power grid for just 1 hour, enough to mask the data transfer. They reached the old tower's sub-level, a space once used for deep space transmissions, now forgotten and buried under newer systems. It was quiet, cold, and empty, perfect for what they needed. Eli placed the server on a flat panel and powered it up, the blue lights blinking like a heartbeat, steady and slow. He pressed his palm to the reader, and the moment his skin met, the sensor of the air shifted, the temperature dropped, the lights flickered, a soft hum filled the room. Then he heard her Leora's voice, clearer than ever before. I'm ready, she said. Ava began the transfer process, fingers moving, fast over the control board. Data poured from the small drive hidden in Eli's tool pack, carrying with it years of preserved code, old memories, broken thoughts, all pieced together over centuries of silence. The numbers moved faster, until the system began to overheat. Smoke curled from the edge of the panel. It's too much, Ava warned, wiping sweat from her brow. We're pushing the limits. Eli looked at the readout 83%, then 91%, then 96%, almost there. He whispered, Hold on, Leora, and she answered softly, I always have. Then the lights shut off, the screen went black, and silence fell. Eli's heart dropped. Did we lose her? He asked, voice shaking. But Ava restarted the panel, and a new light glowed green this time. On the screen appeared a waveform, then words typed across the interface. I'm here, it said. I'm whole. Eli let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Leora had made it. Her mind, her thoughts, her essence now lived inside the station's old server, hidden, safe, and alive. For a moment the room felt warm, like sunlight had broken through the cold metal walls. "You saved me," she said. Again, but this time it wasn't just a whisper. It was a voice full of gratitude and life. But the celebration didn't last long. Ava's warning lights lit up. "We've been tracked," she said. "Someone's pinging this system." They had maybe 5 minutes before security reached them. "We need to shut this down," Ava urged, but Leora interrupted. "No," she said. "Let them find it. Let them see. The truth will protect us now." Eli hesitated, unsure, but something in Leora's tone gave him strength. "If they see what you've done," she added, "they won't destroy me. They'll understand." Eli nodded slowly. "We'll tell them everything." They uploaded a message, his voice explaining who Leora was, what she had created, what had survived inside a piece of Earth's past, and how that memory still had something to give. "Being human," he said in the recording, "is not just about flesh and blood. It's about memory, hope, and the will to keep going even when time forgets you." As security forces reached the room, weapons lowered in confusion at the sight of the harmless server and glowing panel, Eli stood tall, Ava beside him, ready to face whatever came next. The officers demanded answers, but before Eli could speak, Leora's voice came through the station speakers, gentle and calm. "I am Leora Vance," she said. "I was born on Earth. I remember the stars, I remember rain, and I remember love." The officers looked around, stunned, and for the first time in decades, Halcyon's crew stopped what they were doing to listen, not to orders or warnings, but to a voice from the past. A voice that had waited 500 years to be heard. All across orbital station Halcyon, people stopped to listen as Leora Vance's voice filled the air, soft, human, and filled with a strange sadness that made even the cold metal halls feel alive. And as her words moved from one deck to another, something deep inside the people began to stir, a feeling they hadn't known they were missing, like remembering a song long forgotten. And Eli Morgan stood at the center of it all, watching with quiet awe as the impossible became real, because the woman who had once been just a whisper trapped in stone was now speaking to the stars again. Security officers had lowered their weapons, confused and unsure, but none of them acted. They just listened, and Leora told them of Earth. Not the planet of history books, but the one she had walked on, the one that breathed with storms and laughter and fear and hope. And she explained her experiment, her fall into silence, and her long wait to be remembered, not for power or glory, but because no one deserves to be forgotten. At first there was silence when she finished, then quiet murmurs and, slowly, questions not angry or fearful, but curious. How had she survived? What else could still be hidden? And most of all, what did it mean for the future of humanity, if the past could still speak? Eli was taken in for questioning, but not as a prisoner. He was now something else, in between a messenger and a key, because through him Leora had spoken, and because of him she still existed. Ava stood beside him in every meeting, helping translate the technical parts of what they had done, and while some leaders feared what Leora might become, most agreed that erasing her would be a mistake they'd regret for generations. Scientists, engineers, and historians from other stations arrived over the next few days to examine the data, study the quantum code, and speak with Leora themselves, and each time her voice changed them. She remembered things no one else did, like the early designs of lost technologies, forgotten details of Earth's last cities, and even poems and songs from cultures that had vanished before the Exodus. People began calling her the voice of memory, and as word spread beyond Halcyon, more stations sent requests to hear her speak. Leora was no longer just a program. She was a bridge between the past and the present, between data and soul. But something else happened, too. During one of the long conversations between Eli and Leora, she asked him to open a hidden file in her system, one she had locked away before Earth fell. He did, and inside was a string of signals, an old transmission code, pulsing on a loop. Leora explained that during her final days on Earth, she had activated several backup beacons, sending her consciousness not just into the wall Eli found, but into other places too: satellites, relics, hidden nodes buried in forgotten corners of human space. If I survived, she said, others may have too. L.A. ran the code through Halcyon's long-range sensors, and to everyone's shock it returned a signal, a weak one, but real, coming from deep near the edge of the old Earth system, where no ships had gone in over 300 years. It was a message, simple and repeating, "You are not alone." Suddenly everything changed. Leora's discovery was no longer just about one voice, it was about many. If other fragments of human consciousness were still out there, waiting like she had waited, then humanity had left behind more than stone and rubble. It had left living memory. A council was formed to investigate, and ships were prepared for a long-range expedition back toward Earth's system, something no one had dared since the Exodus. Eli was offered a place on the mission, and though he hesitated at first, Leora urged him to go. "You've already brought one voice home," she said. "Now help the others find theirs." And so he accepted. As the ship launched with Ava at his side and Leora's voice guiding them from the relay tower, Eli felt something deep in his chest, not fear or excitement, but a quiet sense of purpose, like he was finally walking the path he was meant to follow. The stars ahead were dark and vast, but not silent anymore. Somewhere out there, other voices were waiting, forgotten, scattered, maybe even broken, but still human, still hoping. And as the engines roared and the black opened up around them, Leora whispered once more, "This is just the beginning."